right, guys, it's Monday, my favorite day of the week, maybe yours as well, after I implemented Metagame Monday at the beginning of the year. Regardless, this is going to be a monstrous episode. I spent all morning dissecting all the 5 challenges that were played, including the showcase yesterday with almost 300 players. So that brings us up to 72 decks, which I consider the most relevant. That is going to be the top 8s of all challenges, like we're used to, and the top 32 of the showcase, which I think are very comparable when it comes to difficulty and thereby how competitive the decks are in general. I'll be using the formula of challenge wins and showcase top 8 equals a foil copy. So I guess we should get into things here. Oh, I guess I should touch on, I took last Monday off, right? BNR, that's as good a day as any to take off Metagame Monday and then start working on the future instead of the past. So with Nadu and Entomb gone, it opens up some design space, in theory, right? Less pressure on main decks, less of these board state decks getting dominated by Nadu, and Nadu just being a strictly better version of a bunch of other decks. Will Reanimator survive? Will Breakfast survive? All those kind of questions, right? A lot of eyes are on Tameo and the One Ring, and let's just see how it shakes out. I don't think there's any need to kick up any fuss, but we have some early trends to look at here, at least. All right, first up, 5 top finishes. It's pretty cool I can use that word, like the PT, right? So 5 top finishes for Oops All Spells. That is a really high number, but you should also take into account that, first of all, the difference between 30th in the showcase and 35th is tiny. The difference between winning a challenge or losing the finals is tiny. All that kind of stuff. But with that being said, Oops All Spells utilizes the graveyard, a space that should, in theory, see less hostility out of the gates in an early format. Oops All Spells is a dangerously powerful force check deck. That means if you want to sign up with Mystic Forge, or you want to sign up with Boros Energy, or you want to sign up with whatever deck, you have a fine hand, you just get blown out turn 1, right? And then all of a sudden, all the deck has to do is scrape over the finish line and win one of 2 games. I will say what's cool about that deck, aside from, people don't like the deck, the game is over somewhat fast. I actually think it's a cool puzzle to solve. Of course, if I play against Oops All Spells every round, it's not the best Magic experience that I could wish for, because I love Magic, so I want Magic to last longer, essentially. I think that's the logic that a lot of people are using. But when you lose to the deck, they mill over their stuff. You should for sure pay attention to what kind of list they're working with. For instance, yesterday in the showcase, I play against the deck, and I see 0 pacts when the opponent flips over the deck, so that essentially means they have a creature sideboard pivot. I respected it mildly for game 2, and then I adjusted for game 3, and I was able to take down the match in the hands of the lightning bolt that I sideboarded back in. So there's a little bit, are they on, creature pivot? Are they on Charbelcher? That type of stuff going on. So please pay attention to that. Let's place Oops All Spells here in the Reanimator column. Other than that, look at this. So let's just take them one by one. Mystic Forge here. A deck that was untouched by the bannings and was already a tier 1 deck, right? How can the deck possibly lose? Like, that must just be the best deck in Legacy, right? Right? Well, it turns out people are more than prepared to make sure that Mystic Forge is just a solid deck. I'm very happy to see that. I think there's a good point in Mystic Forge has overperformed when it's a little bit under the radar, but when it's, in the bright lights, it's just a totally fine Legacy deck. So awesome to see the deck be represented, and awesome to see the deck not crush everybody's dreams. Now, here's my favorite deck. Izzet Cutter. So I want the full 8 1-drops. To make Days in Wasteland as good as possible, and I want Core Steel Cutter as a little bit of a, let's say, some meat and potatoes for when things get a little bit grindy. To be fair, this card is not very, very good against a combo, so you have to monitor the combo share of the metagame when you evaluate whether you want to run this card or you don't want to run this card. This one is actually the most funniest. There was a very cool version with draw 2, discard 1. I forgot the name now. That's not smart. Tainted Indulgence, that's the card. So you basically have 6 fatties in your deck, 3 Atraxas, 3 Archons, and then you also have 3 Oculus, so that you have some juicy stuff to reanimate. This one made top 8 of the showcase, and so this brings me to my next point. It doesn't really matter whether I think, oh yeah, blue-black Reanimator is back, or I think, no, blue-black Reanimator is a flash in the pan. My opinion doesn't really matter. My opinion is irrelevant in that regard, but what I want to do is I want to monitor it and I want to be prepared for it. So I'm going to be certainly keeping an eye out for whether a blue-black pile of Reanimator cards can function. Maybe it can, and the point that the deck got obviously a ton worse, but if the hate is also a ton worse, then maybe we are at status quo and the deck is still viable. Who knows? Up the Beanstalk is giving hope to control players around the world. We have lots of different versions. It's mainly some 4-color versions with leyline binding for flexibility, a lot of Riddlers in the mix, even a couple of leyline of the Guild Pack builds with Sign of Draco. So people are trying to be very creative out of the gates here. I've seen this before when Rashasa's Bargain got printed heavy Beanstalk, so I'm not exactly, keeping my hopes up, but it is a fan favorite deck, and lots of powerful blue mages out there. Omniscience is actually somewhat of a big headline here, being a winner of the BNR. I think getting Thoughtseized less is good in general, so you can put together your 1/2 punches. You can refill with stock up. You have a good mana base. You can splash green and have a Carpet of Flowers for tempo matchups, which were deemed to do well out of the gates. I love that deck, and the numbers certainly show that it's viable. All right, here's Classic Delver with no cutters in it. This deck shines a little bit more against combo and will struggle against tempo mirrors and control matchups. Super cool, you can play different flavors. Then we have Doomsday. Doomsday is a deck that, has a 1/2 punch, A+B combo, plays Underground Sea, plays cantrips, plays forces, can run Tamiyo. So this deck has the formula to do well in the new format, but also a very high difficulty. It's a lot harder to play with Doomsday than play with Entomb Reanimate. So let's see if this returns to this being an expert deck, and now the expert deck is better positioned, so it will get more finishes, or what will happen with the deck. I'm excited for it. I think it's awesome to have around, because against a lot of decks, passing the turn after Doomsday is very fatal. And I think that just automatically balances out the card, so awesome deck to have around. Then we had a challenge win from Eldrazi Aggro. I think that was actually the first challenge out of the gates. It didn't surprise me, because being proactive, Chalice for 1, K-Command, and Battle Mage are very flexible cards. And it was able to take down the first challenge and try and set the stage a little bit. It didn't necessarily work all that well. All right, now I covered all the top finishes. Now I'm going to go through the categories here. So I needed to find a better card to represent these decks, but it was the only card they had in common that, didn't see play in any other deck. Fast Reanimator, some of them with Unmarked Grave, and some of them just with Collective Brutality. So I think this is going to be pretty cool to see whether this deck can shine. Again, if Oops All Spells is drawing all the headlines, then, people will be ready for the graveyard, and Reanimator will not be the best deck. So Reanimator players are secretly hoping for Oops All Spells to get hated out, and then they can kind of get back in. So again, they're occupying kind of the same spot in the metagame, and that is a little bit challenging for both of them, to be honest, because the larger this pile is, the more prepared people are, and, you know how that goes. Next column here is Tempo. I already covered Delver and Corey, but we have a bunch of other versions. So Demir, again, another one of these narrative decks. I care a lot about narratives in Magic, not because I believe them myself, but because the average player will, and those are the ones that I have to beat in my next tournament. So when some people go and say, oh, when Reanimator gets banned, you can just use your Underground Sea and play blue-black Tempo. Like, that is a pretty powerful message. For me, I only play online. It has nothing to do with, those decks sharing some cantrips and Underground Sea. But for some people, it makes a difference. And then all of a sudden, oh, Demir Tempo is the new default best deck. But wasn't really the case. The challenge with Demir is you don't know if you need spell bombs in the main deck. You don't know how many Bowmasters you need. You don't know when Thoughtseize is a liability. You don't know how to build your sideboard. You don't know which removal spells to play outside of Fatal Push, right? Shoot the Sheriff, lose to Bombardier. Shelter's Edict, lose to Clocked Up Board. go for the throw to lose to whatever, Dreadnought, Painter. Like, it's just very hard to build the flex slots of that deck. And yeah, the meta game has to settle before my verdict comes with regards to Demir tempo. In theory, it has a leg up in the red pseudo mirror, so it has that going for it, if that's going to be the most played deck in Legacy. Classic Delver here with Questing Druid as refill, so essentially in the cutter slot, you're trying to say that, hey, against combo, this is a way better card, so getting to dig for forces, get some card advantage is better than putting on some pressure. And I buy into that fully. I don't love the one drop you have to play, but, you know, it's certainly viable. Then we had a Grixis version, very ambitious mana, very low blue count, but very high card quality, flexibilities off the charts, the best one drops available between Netherglyph and Chandler, and then Molten Collapse for you know, all around removal. And I do like that in theory in a new format, that you have a removal spell that would just kill a lot of things. Then we had a sweet Sultai deck. I actually played against this in the challenge on Saturday. In the hands of Bob Wong, who basically played Blue-Black Tempo / Witherbloom command. So when you register a Witherbloom command into an open field, it's basically you saying, I think this format is going to be about Tamiyo, and I think this format is going to be about Recurring Wastelands. So let's say Blue-Black Tempo and Mystic Forge were the decks you were targeting. This card seems pretty darn awesome and worth the splash. We already talked about Delver versus Cutter. Note that Cutter is heavily favored in the numbers here early on. Next column here, we already talked about Omniscience. Let's talk a little bit about Sneak Attack. So the thing about Sneak Attack is that if everybody is playing show until Omniscience, you have an advantage because Sneak Attack is, you know, not symmetrical, right? So there's something to be said about that. Then there's the fact that you get caught by people's Hydroblasts, where Omniscience doesn't. You will have to stretch your mana to play Carpet and Veils. So yeah, pros and cons. Let's see how it shakes out. In general, this pile cannot get too big before it gets too easy to exploit. So let's see what the development is following here. All right, only 3 copies of Mystic Forge out of 72 decks. Let that sink in. That's an incredibly low number for a deck that was deemed the best thing since sliced bread, right? So either people came prepared, the deck's not that great. We don't really know. There is the fact that Mystic Forge is generally bad against faster combo, including Show and Tell and Doomsday. So who knows? For now, Mystic Forge is certainly, it's like a 5% deck prediction for me when it comes to Eternal Weekend EU. Could go to 10 if it trends. And yeah, it's going to be in that realm. We already talked about Doomsday, another cool ritual combo deck. Saga Storm, a deck that generally just benefits from the format being a little bit lower power level than before. So in theory, any deck got better, but since any deck got better, you still have the the strength in between the decks that is kind of unchanged. So yeah, I expect to feature this every now and again, but it's not going to become a format staple. Now we have straight up creature decks, and this is really funny. Like, we usually have different styles of decks here, mainly powered by Nado strategies, I guess. But this time, 6 copies. That's double the Forge amount. 6 copies of Mardu Energy. So Mardu Energy is a great foil to tempo decks, but I actually don't think it's that great of a great position against stuff like Blazing Fast Graveyard combo, Spell combo, Show and Tell, stuff like that. So I must say I'm very impressed with these players. I will have to study their sideboards to see what they're doing to kind of make up the lost ground. But yeah, pretty cool to see. Also, how Magic works is that, let's say you love Mardu Energy as a deck, then you go and check these results. Like, that gives you confirmation that this is viable, right? So I expect this deck to keep hanging around. Next up is the control decks. We already talked about the Beans variants. I believe this was essentially Sultai Tradebinder. Just awesome to see, to be honest. This was Blue-White Control. We had Jeskai Wizards. Jeskai Wizards is my favorite control deck. I think the deck is very, very strong into the field. You can play all the blasts in the world. I count Consign in the blasts, by the way. Flame of Anor seems to have very good cross usage between, Forge, Cutter. You would have to watch out a little bit for the Bowmaster count, but yeah, in general, I think this deck is awesome. Perfect mana base as well. And now one of the other decks that had a lot going for it narrative-wise going into new season here. So we have the blue Cloudpost deck. What I like about most of these versions is they're splashing Barrogoyf out of the sideboard. I think that's just very good for when things get a little bit grindy. That's primarily going to be against the tempo decks. The cost is just so little. I guess sideboard slots is a cost these days. This deck does a good job of checking the format with stuff like Force, Chalice, and a lot of must counters like One Ring. Stock up, trainers, make sure that the deck is somewhat consistent. This deck is a little bit weak to blue-red because blue-red has access to Consign, blue-red has access to Pyroblast, Wasteland, and a fast clock, so it's just a lot of the things this deck doesn't want to see. So that deck is secretly hoping for Demir to be the premier tempo deck. Very, very cool to see. Fan-favorite deck, and it's putting up good numbers. Next up is Stompy. Just a single copy of Red Prison and then White Initiative variety that I found pretty cool. Red Prison is a weird one because when you look over the field, if people just have good mana bases like show and tell decks, you play against turn 1 Ring out of Mystic Forge, you play against 2-color decks in general out of Tempo, Doomsday. The draw to playing that deck is just, you know, somewhat low, unfortunately. So yeah, role player for now, and let's see if we can continue to follow the development. Last pile here is going to be resource denial, loam stuff, recursive wasteland. I don't know. Let me know if you think it makes sense to put these in the same pile. The Pox deck is still sticking around after a cool showing at Eternal Weekend US. It's putting up top 8s, it's putting up top 32s in the biggest tournaments. And yeah, it just seems like, and it's an annoying deck to play against, to be honest. Like, it can punish mulligans very well, make the opponent a very, very sad guy. So yeah, awesome to see it here. The same with lands. So Sprouts is responsible for at least one of these, but we also see other lands players do well. I believe it even won a challenge, but maybe that was right before the bans. Anyway, lands is here, and it hasn't really been for the last, 3 weeks or so. So right now we actually have to account for Loam Wastelock when we're building our deck. So that means these 5-color Beanstalk decks or whatever aren't safe, nor are these Cloudpost decks. And all in all, we have a bunch of numbers here. So let me just try and give you some examples of how I think about stuff like this. So let's say I'm a tempo player. I want to cast Daze. I want to attack with Delver, or Nethergoyf, I guess, and I want to wasteland my opponent. How do I know if my red version or my black version is going to be the better one? So now I have to see, do I need Pyroblast? Against how many of these do I need Pyroblasts? Main Ignile Spellbomb, would that be good? What about Bowmaster stock? Would that be good? Right? How many Barrogoyfs are in the field? Because I'm somewhat weak to that off of my blue-red Delver deck. Should I do like Jujubee and play the ungodly uncommon of Unable to Scream to handle it? Or will my Unholy Heat be okay? All of these is like, we need a metagame in order to make those judgment calls. Otherwise, we're just going to be playing cards we like, which is also totally fine, right? But that's just not what I'm about around here. I'm trying to play the cards that give me the best chance to win based on the numbers that I have available. And then, of course, there's no guarantees in Magic. That's how it works, right? But that's kind of my thought process. How do my cards line up against the field? So, yeah, this was a mouthful. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll be screenshotting this and sending them to a few friends, because this is a pretty good homework if you're trying to get ready for Eternal Weekend EU. Whew. That was a sweet episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you like what I'm doing around here and want more thoughts of mine about Magic, Legacy, Vintage, you should go and sign up to my Metafy. I have deck guides, strategy articles, I have the best guest primers in the business, and I have the best community in the business. We are around 280 barons strong over in the Discord, streaming challenges every weekend, talking about the game, developing, sharing results, sharing the ups and downs as well, the inevitable ups and downs, right? And yeah, I would love to see you over there. I'm not going to take too much more of your time. I just want to thank you as always for watching and following my journey. It's an absolute pleasure, and I hope to see you back next time. Thanks so much, guys.